The city lights flickered against the darkening sky as Karoline Levitt climbed into the back seat of a black sedan. A rising political star known for her bold speeches and unrelenting work ethic, Karoline had opted for a ride-share after her driver canceled last minute. She was busy reviewing her notes for an upcoming conference when the driver greeted her. "Good evening, ma'am. Civic Center, right?" "Yes, thank you," Karoline replied absent-mindedly, glancing at the driver's name tag, Michael Sutherland. At first, the ride was quiet, but Karoline couldn't help noticing details about the man driving her. His posture was upright, his movements deliberate, and the car's interior was spotless. There was a small book on astrophysics tucked into the door pocket, catching her attention. "Do you read a lot about space?" she asked, breaking the silence. Michael glanced at her in the rearview mirror, a small smile on his face. "You could say that. I used to work in the field." Karoline raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Really? What did you do?" Michael hesitated for a moment, as if deciding whether to share. Finally, he said, "I was an engineer at NASA for almost 3 decades." Karoline blinked, taken aback. "NASA? You're serious?" Michael chuckled softly. "I am." The revelation lingered in the air as Karoline struggled to reconcile the man in the driver's seat with the prestigious image of a NASA engineer. She leaned forward slightly, curiosity bubbling. "How does someone with your background end up driving for Uber?" Michael's smile faded slightly, replaced by a faraway look. "Life doesn't always go the way we plan," he said quietly. "Sometimes, circumstances force you to start over." Before Karoline could ask more, the car pulled up to the Civic Center. She stepped out but paused at the door. "Mr. Sutherland, I'd love to hear more about your story sometime. Would you be open to that?" Michael nodded, his eyes warm but guarded. "I'd be happy to, ma'am. Just let me know." As Karoline walked into the building, she couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter was just the beginning of something extraordinary. The next day, Karoline found herself thinking about Michael. There was something about his calm demeanor and the weight of his words that stayed with her. Unable to resist her curiosity, she opened her Uber app, found his profile, and sent him a message. "Hi, Mr. Sutherland. This is Karoline Levitt. I enjoyed our conversation yesterday and would love to hear more about your story. Let me know if there's a good time to connect." To her surprise, Michael replied within the hour. "Miss Levitt, I appreciate your message. I'd be happy to share more. If you're free this afternoon, there's a coffee shop downtown where we could meet." Later that day, Karoline arrived at the coffee shop, a quaint spot with wooden floors and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Michael was already there, seated at a corner table with a book open in front of him. "Miss Levitt," he greeted warmly, standing to shake her hand. "Michael," she replied with a smile. "Thank you for meeting with me. I couldn't stop thinking about what you said yesterday." Michael gestured for her to sit. "I figured you might have questions. Most people do when they hear NASA and Uber driver in the same sentence." Karoline chuckled. "Fair point. So, what exactly did you do at NASA?" Michael leaned back, his eyes thoughtful. "I was an aerospace engineer. I worked on projects like the Mars rover and the development of next-generation spacecraft. It was an incredible experience, challenging, rewarding, and humbling all at once." Karoline was captivated. "That's incredible. So, what happened? Why aren't you still there?" Michael hesitated, his expression clouded. "Let's just say, life threw me some curveballs. After my wife passed away a few years ago, I took early retirement to care for my daughter. But things didn't go as planned." Karoline's voice softened. "I'm so sorry to hear that. What happened with your daughter?" Michael looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. "She struggled with mental health issues. Despite my best efforts, she passed away last year." Karoline felt a lump in her throat. "Michael, I can't even imagine. I'm so sorry." Michael gave her a small, sad smile. "Thank you. Driving for Uber helps me stay busy. It gives me a sense of purpose, even if it's small." Karoline leaned forward, her voice resolute. "Michael, I don't believe your story ends here. You've contributed so much to humanity, Why not share your knowledge and inspire others? Michael sighed, his gaze distant. I've thought about it, Miss Levitt, but I've always struggled with the idea. The world moves so fast. Who would want to listen to an old engineer with a lifetime of stories? Karoline's eyes lit with determination. Plenty of people would, Michael. Your story isn't just about your work at NASA. It's about perseverance, resilience, and finding purpose even when life knocks you down. Trust me, people need to hear stories like yours. Michael smiled faintly but didn't respond. Karoline could tell he wasn't entirely convinced, but she wasn't about to let it go. Let me help you, she offered. You might not realize it, but you have so much to give. Maybe we can find a way to bring your story to the public. Michael's eyebrows furrowed. What do you mean? Like an article or something? Karoline shook her head. Bigger than that. Imagine speaking engagements, educational programs, maybe even writing a book. Your experiences could inspire countless young minds, Michael. The idea hung in the air, and Michael finally nodded, though hesitantly. I suppose it's worth. Michael finally nodded, though hesitantly. I suppose it's worth considering. But where would we even start? Karoline smiled, sensing a spark of hope in his voice. Leave that to me. I have connections, and I know people who would jump at the chance to highlight a story like yours. But first, I need to hear everything. Your journey, your challenges, and the moments that defined your career. The more I know, the better I can help you. Michael paused, staring at his coffee mug as if searching for answers. Finally, he looked up, his voice tinged with vulnerability. All right, let's start from the beginning. Over the next hour, Michael unraveled his incredible life story. He spoke about his early fascination with space, the grueling years he spent earning his engineering degree, and the day he was hired by NASA, a moment he described as walking on the moon without ever leaving Earth. Karoline listened intently as he shared anecdotes from his time at NASA, working on the Mars rover, brainstorming with brilliant minds, and witnessing the first successful landing of a spacecraft he helped design. His eyes lit up as he described the passion that fueled him for decades. But then his tone shifted. Michael recounted the day his wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He had juggled his demanding career with caring for her and their daughter, but after his wife passed, everything changed. I thought retiring early would allow me to focus on my daughter, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. But I underestimated how deeply she was affected by her mother's death. I didn't see the warning signs until it was too late. Karoline felt tears prick her eyes. You did the best you could, Michael. You shouldn't blame yourself. He nodded but didn't speak, the weight of his loss evident in his expression. After a long pause, he continued, after she passed, I felt empty. I needed something to keep me going, so I started driving. It's simple, routine, and gives me a chance to meet people without getting too close. That's where I've been ever since. Karoline leaned forward, her voice filled with conviction. Michael, your story isn't just about loss. It's about surviving and finding a way to keep moving forward. That's what makes it so powerful. People need to hear this. Michael's eyes softened. Do you really think it could make a difference? Karoline smiled. I know it will. True to her word, Karoline set things in motion. Within weeks, she arranged for Michael to speak at a local university about his work at NASA and his personal journey. She even helped him craft a speech, ensuring it was equal parts informative and inspiring. The day of the event, Michael stood nervously backstage, clutching his notes. Karoline placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You've got this. Just speak from the heart. When Michael stepped onto the stage, he was met with a packed auditorium. Students, professors, and members of the community had all gathered to hear him. He took a deep breath and began. My name is Michael Sutherland. I spent 28 years working at NASA, chasing dreams that once felt impossible. But my journey wasn't just about space exploration. It was about learning to navigate the unpredictable course of life itself. As he spoke, the audience hung on his every word. He shared stories of innovation and teamwork, but also moments of heartbreak and resilience. By the time he finished, the room erupted in applause. Karoline watched from the wings, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. Michael had not only found his voice but also inspired an entire room of people to dream bigger and persevere through life's challenges. After the event, Michael and Karoline sat outside the auditorium, watching the crowd disperse. "I never thought I'd be able to do something like that," Michael admitted, his voice filled with awe. Karoline smiled. "You just needed a push. And now you've taken the first step toward something incredible." Michael nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You know, for the first time in years, I feel like I have a purpose again." "Thank you, Karoline. You've given me more than I could have imagined." As the two parted ways, Karoline reflected on the power of connection and storytelling. Michael's journey had touched her deeply, and she knew it would continue to inspire countless others. The story ends with Michael embarking on a new chapter, sharing his knowledge, experiences, and resilience with the world. And Karoline, ever the catalyst for change, realized once again the profound impact of lifting others up. Sometimes, the most extraordinary stories are hidden in the most unexpected places, waiting for someone to uncover them.